From behind, yes, you might think I'm Eric Carlson. But of course, I am not Eric Carlson because I'm your esteemed host, Owen. And I'm here to tell you all about the Sharks' worst contract that they have. Now, this is one of the few teams that I can actually change my set for, if you want to call it a set. Because it's there's only a couple teams I can change for. And the Coyotes is the constant. The Sharks can be moved in and out, and I've got like a couple teams that I can actually dress up for. But this is one of the few teams that actually have enough jerseys to put up and then wear one. So I'm going to, and I'm going to be the not dapperly dressed host today. So whatever, moving on from that, thank you for coming here today to hear me talk about the Sharks and their worst contract. Now we know that everybody knows, if you pay attention at all, that the Sharks have one of the worst contract situations in the league. They've got a few really bad ones. I would say they have well, let's just talk about it today. I don't know why I'm going to brief it because we're already going to talk about it. So let's start off with the captain, Logan Couture, which I have a signed hat by his, by the way. Not that I'm trying to brag about anything, but it's also a really cool hat. I love this hat. Anyways, Captain Cooch, I mean, obviously, he's a hallmark of this team, right? What can you say? This guy lives and breathes to be a captain. I mean, the Sharks, when it comes to them picking the captain of a team, they've not gotten wrong once, and I think ever. At least since Patrick Marleau was captain. Marleau, then to Thornton, then to Joe Pavelski, to Logan Couture. Just the perfect combination of captains, right? Now, Logan Couture, it's kind of surprising to me how old he is. He's 33, which is kind of surprising. He always rubs off on me as a guy that's younger than that. He's always seems like a 29-year-old or something, but he's 33. He only got 56 points last season, right? Now, the thing about Couture is that he signed till 2027, so he's got 5 or 4 years left, depending on how you think about it. I think about it as 5 years. He has 5 years left for $8 million. The thing that confuses me is that I don't think he's ever been worth $8 million. He's gotten to 30 points in his career 5 times, 50 points 4 times, 60 points 3 times, and 70 points 1 time. So last year he gets 56, which is kind of where he is usually in his career. He's in the 50s and 60s and drops down to the 30s sometimes. So he's very inconsistent on where he actually places in points, but never would I ever say he was worth $8 million. And especially if you take a look at the times where he did get to 60 points, let's say, it was during when the cap was different back then, right? He gets paid $8 million. I think he signed that the year he did get 70 points. 72 points. He did just get 70 points, I think. So Couture, to me, he's one of those guys who signs a contract later into his career, and he was never worth that, you know? Like, sure, you can say a guy like, we'll get to this guy down here soon, but you can say a guy like him at one point was worth this, but he was paid it too late, and now he's obviously not worth it anymore. Logan Couture is a guy that was never worth $8 million, signs a deal late into his career, and isn't worth that anymore. And you can kind of say the same thing about the next guy, Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Pickles himself. I mean, who doesn't love Marc-Edouard Vlasic? Who doesn't? Now, you might not like his contract. Nobody should. He has been, by the advanced stat people that know how to do certain things with math or whatever, which I get math, but I don't understand how they figure these things out. But Marc-Edouard Vlasic has the worst valued contract in the entire NHL, according to them. And I wouldn't say they're wrong. 14 points, which isn't really what speaks. Minus 22. He's 35. He's signed till 2026, so he's signed for another 4 years still. 4 years for 2026 for $7 million. This guy wasn't worth his deal when he signed it, and he isn't worth it now, and he's never going to be again. Now, for a long time, it was said, Marc-Edouard Vlasic was probably, I would say personally, not just because I'm a Sharks fan, but just playing hockey myself and just knowing how the game is played, I would say Vlasic at one point was probably the best defensive stay-at-home defenseman I've ever seen. The guy that stays in front of the net and can just stop the other teams from anything starting, it's incredible what this guy used to be able to do. But now, of course, he's old. He's become one of those guys. If you've ever played hockey, you know the type of guy that he is on this team. He's that one guy that just can't keep up with everybody else, just always is behind the play, and by the time he's there, the puck's already in the net where he should have been 5 seconds ago. And hockey's a game of seconds and inches, and That's how you get screwed over. Is a guy like Pickles here, 35. He's already old, right? He's old, overpaid, can't produce offensively, and where he never was offensively gifted. I think the best season he ever had was maybe in the 30s or lower 40s. I think maybe that was his best year. But then usually his thing was always that he was that defensive guy, right? He's the best defensive guy in the league, and I mean, it's just a real fall from grace. It's really unfortunate because, I mean, sure, even if I think he got like 14, 17 points in his prime because he wasn't there to score. He was there to stop you from scoring, and he was good at that, but he's no longer good at it. So, unfortunate, but we must move on to, of course, the guy that everybody knows and everybody knows the deal about it. Erik Carlson, right? Carlson, the two-time Norris winner, probably during the 2000s, the best, not 2000s, the 2010s, the best defenseman in the league. Maybe you can compare him to, like, Hedman by the end of his, like, reign of being the best. Maybe Roman Josi, John Carlson at times, maybe even guys like Shea Weber, PK Subban, Brent Burns even. Erik Carlson brought on to the San Jose Sharks. Seemed like, well, San Jose now is the best defense in the league. It was as Pickles was on the decline, but he was still doing all right. Brent Burns was still into Norris form. You had younger guys like Radim Šimić actually having a pretty, not good offensively, but just solid guys through that lineup on defense. Just the best defense in the league, right? But then it all collapsed right then and there, right? And it was weird. I don't know what happened, to be honest. He's 32 years old, again. 35 points. He is signed to 2027. So 5 more years for $11 million. That is in the top 5 of contracts in the league. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe he's pushed out now because of Nathan MacKinnon's contract. But Erik Carlson, at one point, he was getting 80 points, 70-something points. Even then, I would say that's an overpayment for a defenseman. But just for what he brought, because he wasn't lacking defensively either. I mean, especially on a team like the Senators, which wasn't really the best all around. What he was getting as points, I could only imagine what prime Erik Carlson could have done if he was in Cale Makar's position today. Could you imagine what 27-year-old Erik Carlson could have been doing with the Colorado Avalanche? I wouldn't be surprised if he could break into the hundreds. It would be incredible to see what he could do. But here he is with the Sharks, a team where it seemed like he could have been doing that, but of course we all know all the Sharks. Everything collapsed all in one season. It's so bizarre, really, and I don't know what happened, to be honest. I know he had his surgery or something, and he's just never bounced back from that. I don't know really what spelt the catalyst till the end. But whatever it was, it doomed his career forever. And he's just never been the same. And it doesn't seem like he can. Like some guys, it's like, oh, he's had a couple bad years, but you never know. He could bounce back. Maybe not fully into form, but he could get back to, who knows, like the 50s or something, right? Erik Carlson, he just doesn't seem to have his breath. He just doesn't seem to have his step anymore. It just doesn't seem like he has that fighting spirit. I mean, I was never the bestest of hockey players, right? And I feel like the way he's playing now is kind of how, every player has their baddest days, right? Someday, just high school hockey, whatever, right? You're not doing anything special. Sometimes you go to your game and you just don't have, you just don't have it in you, you know? You don't have that spirit that day. Sometimes when that puck, some days you wake up, you go into that game, you're mad, you're angry, you're hungry to win, and you go fight inch and nail, you go head first in the boards just to get to the puck first, right? But the way Erik Carlson's playing, he doesn't have that anymore. It just seems like those days when you're like, oh, here comes the puck, gotta turn around, let's go, but they're already past you, right? He just doesn't have that heart and soul anymore, and I don't know if that's because he's maybe, after that one bad year, after being praised, maybe he's, just doesn't have that heart anymore. Maybe it's the fact that his leg hurts now or something. I don't know. I don't know anything about surgeries or the after effects or whatever. I don't know. Something was taken out of his game that just has not been injected and doesn't feel like it could. It doesn't even feel like if he was somehow traded to, let's say, like the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? And then they have Hedman and him on the team. Like, it does. Actually, I feel like with them, that maybe he could turn it around because he wouldn't have to be the defenseman. Hedman could do all the work, and then he could just try to get some goals in the net. But even, and speaking of goals, he's finally got to double digits with the Sharks in goals this year with 10, but only 10. And with the Senators, he was in the teens. He was in the 20s, right? This guy is getting a ton of goals as well, but he just has not hit that form again. So out of these guys, who's now for the Sharks? They have some other contracts, right? They have a guy. For me personally, I mean, who doesn't love Tomas Hurdle? Who does not love him, right? Ninja Hurdle. Who doesn't love the guy? Spirit fingers himself. But the thing about it is that his deal, $88 million for what he brings to the table. Tomas Hurdle is one of those hard-fighting guys that if he was on a team like Tampa or Colorado or Florida, if he was on a team like that, I could only imagine the type of points he could get. But with the Sharks, he's just not an $8 million player. And guys like Timo Meier, that's not a bad contract. $6 million for what he brings, but for this upcoming season, he's going to need to get re-signed. And I don't know. He might be a guy that's on the chopping block because they just can't sign him back. So, I don't know. The thing, it's just, they got some bizarre contracts on the Sharks that are really going to burden them for a while, and until they finally get rid of them, they got rid of Brent Burns' contract, which wasn't really that bad. Brent Burns really isn't as bad as a guy like Erik Karlsson at this point. So, anyways, moving on from that, out of these guys on this list, who would I say is the worst contract? I would say Couture can't, because he's paid $8 million and actually gets some points and isn't really like the worst player on the ice when he's out there. He just doesn't really produce enough. Marc-Edouard Vlasic is really just terrible. Erik Karlsson, the thing about Carlson is that he still can make some plays. He can still pass the puck and actually produce some sort of offense. He's still got 10 goals. Marc-Edouard Vlasic cannot drive anything, and he's paid $7 million. At least Erik Karlsson, I could believe, could get some goals. Maybe defensively weak, but he could maybe produce some offense. But Marc-Edouard Vlasic won't get defense back, and he's never had offense in him. So I would say Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Pickles' contract is the worst on the San Jose Sharks. But please tell me down below all about how stupid I am for thinking that it's not Erik Karlsson, because I know his is the worst deal in the league. I get it. So tell me all that down below, how stupid I am. But until next time, please pick up your free subscription by hitting that red subscribe button. If you like this video, leave a like, not a dislike, but go down below to the comments section and tell me how stupid I am and all that jazz. So until next time, I'm not your dapperly dressed host, Owen, unlike usual. And thank you for watching. You're beautiful, I guess. Why not? Too sweet. And I hope you're having an amazing day. And ta-ta for now.